Okay, today is Sparta. It's the Stoics. And so, what I would like to do today is to um, go through and talk about the Stoics for you. You have a lot of supplemental information, but I would like to make sure that you understand, um, from my perspective, what the Stoics are all about. And again, I'm going to stick really close to kind of historical background and just give you a few insights into probably just kind of outline a lot of stuff that you will read or have read. And hopefully you'll take some time to look through the Stoic material because there's a lot there. And we do um, subscribe to the belief very strongly in our culture. So, without further ado, I will get started on the Stoics. So I put Sparta here because they are a very good representation of the Stoics. They understand discipline, they understand their position, they understand fate, and they also understand they have to undergo a big change in themselves, and they have to accept certain things that most of us would not accept. One of the big things that Epictetus said in regards to studying philosophy was, what is philosophy? Does it not mean making preparation to meet that which comes upon us? And I put it differently here, but it's certainly an interesting way to think about ethics or practicing philosophy, because philosophy now is more of a cerebral issue instead of a real, actual, practical thing. When we talk about the Greeks, Plato, Aristotle, Epictetus, Epicurus, they're really interested in and want to encourage behavior in the way that you should behave and who you are. So that will be our focus here. So their moral philosophy is it's certainly a way to guide people to a better life. And that means a happy and flourishing life, not the happy, I have my nice fat crib and my SUV and all that. They're talking about a happy, a content, a blessed, a flourishing, meaning things are progressing, they're getting better. That kind of life, not our happy kind of life. And it's referred to as a good flow of life or simply just the good flow. And it's very practical. And what we want is happier, better people. There's a promise that they give us, and it's pretty tough because we recognize that this life is full of troubles and we have lots of transient relationships. So how is it that a philosophy can promise to give us a happier, more practical, better life, a flourishing life with all the things that we know that go on? But the first thing we're going to have to do, and the Epicureans actually promote this too, but Epictetus says we're going to have to change what we think about as the good and what is truly good. And we certainly have some mistaken beliefs about what is truly good. So you're going to have to stop investing your hope in these things that aren't going to last. And you're going to have to start realizing that the only thing that you have the power to control is your character. So in order to be happy or to flourish, it does not depend on people. It doesn't depend on the things we have. It doesn't depend on where we live. It simply means that we have learned to respond and to assent to impressions, and that we understand that all these external things don't matter, that our response to them is the thing that makes us happy or unhappy. So I'll explain a little bit more. But this slide is kind of a repetition. I actually had two slideshow presentations and I was trying to incorporate them into one, and it doesn't always go smoothly, but how can you have happiness in this world? Pretty much very similar. The idea is that you practice. This is Aristotle's idea too. You have to practice. You can't be in the experience machine to live out your life. Your life must be lived in this world. So why are you studying philosophy? Why do you practice? Why do you learn different subjects? Why do you, as an athlete, why do you prepare yourself for the battle? Or why do you exercise or train? You're preparing yourself for what's coming up. And in life, we understand that hardships are going to come upon us. And the Stoics believe very strongly that philosophy would be the very thing that would prepare you for hardship. Admiral James Stockdale says exactly the same thing. He said, without that, I never would have been able to live in Hanoi Hilton. So this philosophy promises you immunity from harm, and this is a big issue. How is it going to do that? Well, our number one problem in life is that we do mistake what's truly good, and we really don't know where our advantages lie. And we certainly are all aware that life has no guarantees, and I think we understand that we don't control external things. However, I don't think that we really get it. I think we do think that we can control everything in our universe, and that just doesn't seem to be the case. External things they're going to say they're limited, they're partial, and they're temporary. And this is something that you're going to have to come to grips with, that your control over your external environment. For the Stoics, it's so limited. You can't even imagine how little you are in comparison to the big universe that's around you. So, what can you do about this? Well, you're going to have to practice, or you're going to have to strive for the happy life. And it's motivated by virtue. And in there, very, very similar to what Aristotle said, they're picking up from Aristotle on the virtues. But in order to progress toward excellence, and again, borrowed from Aristotle, you're going to have to understand the true nature of your being. And this is always a starting point for Greek philosophers, and should be a starting point for any moral philosopher, and it generally is. We have to talk about who you are. And then after you understand your true being, then you have to keep your moral character in the right condition. So your striving in life should not be for external things. It shouldn't be for your career, your fame, wealth, etc. It should only be for virtue, because everything else you're going to need to see it as indifferent. Because, well, I'll leave that for later. I don't want to ruin the big surprise. But indifferent for the Stoics, and when they talk about apathy, they're talking in terms of good and bad, and likewise the terms preferred and dispreferred should be used. So when we talk about indifferent, we think of things as good, and then we think of things as bad, and usually the good things are things that benefit us, and bad is the things that deprive us. So any of the preferred items, wealth, fame, those should be seen as just kind of an extra, little cherry on the top of life. But you should enjoy them only in the way that they help you to strive for virtue, but you should never put your trust in them. They are only instrumental. And if you didn't have them, you could still be happy. That's a tough one. That's a tough one for us. I'm going to go ahead and stop here to make this a little bit shorter.